722 by Michael S. Walker. When Lee Driston awoke on the 22nd of July, he should have been astounded at the first sight that met his watery, unstable eyes. On his walnut desk, his computer monitor, which he was certain he had turned off the night before after doing his usual 3 hours of writing, was alive with a virtual face, the gaunt visage of a man with glaring red eyes. That is one scary-looking face, he thought, as he stared at the monitor. Only Lee wasn't scared or astounded or even mystified. He just lay there in his bed, waiting for new developments. He was certain they were coming. "Well," the face on the computer monitor said in a high, girlish voice, "it's about time you woke up." "What time is it?" Lee asked. He didn't glance at the alarm clock on the dresser next to his bed. "Time you woke up," the man in the monitor said in a slow voice, as if he were explaining quantum mechanics to an idiot child. "You need to get dressed. Go to the lobby. Mrs. Robinson is waiting for you." Lee had absolutely no idea who Mrs. Robinson was. Visions of Anne Bancroft seducing Dustin Hoffman in the film The Graduate started to play in his head. "Wrong, Mrs. Robinson," the man in the monitor said. Lee got out of bed automatically, searching for the blue jeans and T-shirt he had thrown on the carpet of his bedroom the night before. A very small voice in the back of his mind was suggesting he should be screaming and running out of his apartment, but it was a very, very small voice indeed. So there's a man on my computer screen. Stranger things have happened, he thought. "Yes, indeed," the man in the monitor agreed. As Lee began to dress, he studied the face floating in the screen. That was all there was, an angular, wizened face, no neck, no shoulders. The man's hair was a tangle of sandy curls. He reminded Lee of someone he had gone to high school with. Dave. "Please don't compare me to that odious Dave Saunders who you went to school with," the man said. "He always smelled like garlic, and he was always calling you Lee Driston, like it was so droll. Just go to the lobby, please." As Lee finished putting on his clothes, he parted the slats of the Venetian blinds to look out his bedroom window and see what kind of day it was. The sky was green, very green, like the color of the top of a pool table green. "Must be a tornado coming," he thought indifferently. "Undoubtedly," the man agreed. "Would you go now?" "Okay, I'm going. I just need to find my keys and—" "Never mind all that," the man said, rolling his red eyes. "You're probably not going to be coming back here anyway." Even that tidbit of information did not seem to faze Lee Driston. In the hallway of Lee's apartment building, there was a flyer on the floor next to the door. This was not unusual at all. The management always had some piece of information it wished to pass on to its many tenants: what wasn't working, where rent checks were supposed to go, where cars could and could not be parked, etc., etc. Lee picked up the flyer. 1,000 copies were strewn on the floor, one in front of each doorway. This is what it said. "To whom it may concern, at 2 this after, the Right Honorable Bede will be reciting fragments of chapters of his own History of the Quantum Mechanics Wars for all gentlemen residing on these here premises. The Right Honorable Bede is the scribe of such masterworks as Abraham Lincoln, why he killed our beloved John Wilkes Booth, and how the Russians got to the moon first and why they blew it up. The reading will be in the lobby by the mailboxes, refreshments to follow. Please keep excitable children and wild animals away, as the Right Honorable Bede gets very nervous at these readings and may bolt if provoked. Sincerely, the landlord." Even though this missive was very unusual, Lee had never seen a flyer like it before. He didn't give it any more than a cursory look. He very carefully placed it on the carpet and continued walking on down the hall. After all, Mrs. Robinson was waiting for him. "That's right," he heard a muffled voice behind his apartment door yell. "Get going!" The lobby of his apartment building seemed to be exactly the same. Same gray tile and pink-striped wallpaper. Same row of metal mailboxes adorning one oblong wall. Same opulent baccarat chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Yes, everything was the same, except against the far wall, where a plate of glass looked out onto the outdoor swimming pool. In place of the large upholstered couch that usually ran in front of this window, there was a green lawn chair. A large black woman sat on this lawn chair, placidly knitting a scarf. She was wearing a pair of navy blue sweatpants and navy blue socks that were pulled up over the sweatpants, and beige sandals over the socks. On the top of her head, she wore a navy blue toboggan cap. Next to her was a shopping cart filled with all sorts of knickknacks and trash: towels, bulky plastic garbage bags, skyrockets, pinwheels, stuffed animals, glass decanters. Lee wasn't sure how she had gotten this unwieldy shopping cart to the front door of the apartment complex, or how she had managed to get it past the security guard who was on duty there 24 hours a day, but she had. and like everything else so far, he didn't give it a second thought. "Mrs. Robinson?" he asked tentatively. "That's me, honey." She didn't look up from her knitting. "I was told to see you," Lee said, even more tentatively. "Speaking of seeing," Mrs. Robinson said, "ever see one of these before?" From somewhere inside the sweatpants, she produced a small shape and handed it to Lee. "Well, have you?" Lee glanced at the small shape in his hand. Those two words, small and shape, were the only words that described what rested in his palm. Lee couldn't tell if the small shape was rectangular or circular or elliptical or even star-shaped for that matter. He couldn't tell if it was gray, green, red, black, or navy blue in color. He couldn't tell if it was animal, vegetable, or mineral. It was just a small shape. "What is it?" Lee asked. "Oh, nothing much. Later on I hears it becomes something, but right now it's nothing much." Lee certainly had to agree with that. "I'm going to need that back," Mrs. Robinson said. Lee handed over the object without any extra persuading. After all, what use did he have for nothing much? "I tell you, later on it does become something," she said, winking at Lee and putting the nothing much back in her sweatpants. "Well, I suppose ought to be up and doing, as my Uncle Fred used to say." She gathered up her knitting materials and stuffed them into the shopping cart. "You ever meet my Uncle Fred?" she asked with a touch of eagerness in her husky voice. "I can't say that I ever did," Lee replied. "Ah, that's too bad. He was a lovely man, just lovely. He kept thylacines as pets. Had about 100 or so of them in a barn behind his house. Oh, you should have seen them when they yawned." She shuddered and crossed herself. "What's a thylacine?" Lee said, genuinely interested. "Tasmanian tigers?" Lee looked at her blankly. "Where you been, boy? Hiding under rocks or something?" "I'm beginning to think so, although—" "Well, enough of this jabbering. I suppose we should take the train out." "Out where?" Lee asked. "Well, hon, it don't really exist yet, so I can't tell you. But it will, once we get there. And then, well, we'll know." "But how will we know we've gotten there if we don't know where we're going?" Lee asked. "Man, you ask way too many questions. Let's just go, okay? Oh, almost forgot." She turned to her shopping cart and extended her arms to grab each end of it. Then, with one swift movement, she collapsed the bulk of the shopping cart as if she were merely squeezing an accordion bellows. The shopping cart and its motley contents were telescoped downward until they occupied about as much space as a traveling alarm clock. She took the resulting package and stuffed it up under her toboggan. "Likes to keep all my belongings safe," she said. "All right, let's go then."